The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is October 21st, 2024, and once again, I decided to delay a video by a day, and part of the reason why, and I think it's the reason why, is because of the major developments that are happening on the front, not just in Donetsk Oblast, but also in Kharkov Oblast, and also in the Kursk Oblast as well. So, with that being said, let's look at the front. Let's first start off with Ugledar, okay, in Donetsk. So the Russians, after taking the town of Ugledar and all of its commie blocks, they have made a lot of pretty sizable gains from the town, and they are now about to enter and clash with the Ukrainians for the village of Boho-Yavlinka. Now, if the Russians are able to seize this settlement, they will take control over this road. They'll basically establish full fire control over this road, which goes all the way up to Kharkov. And also, the Russians from Konstantinivka and also the Ugledar direction have also clashed with the Ukrainians for the village of Katerinivka. And it's very likely that the Russians are probably going to take over this village over the course of a few days, if not a whole week, because this is a very small village, and I just can't see the Ukrainians holding on to it in the short term. They're definitely going to lose it quite soon. No clashes yet for the village of Antonivka, but I'm expecting clashes to start very soon, and I don't think the Russians are going to really have that much of a difficulty taking it once they do start fighting for it. Nothing going on in Yili Zava... Hold on, I don't know if I can pronounce this properly. Yili Zavitivka. And Ilinka here. These remaining villages here will be taken later on, and when compared to these other ones, they don't look as hard and are definitely more flat and have next to no residential areas. And then after all this is taken, then pretty much the Kharkov is basically going to be turned into another cauldron. And speaking of which, the Russians have seized complete control over the settlement of Maximilianivka. And with the taking of this, along with the road south of it, the Russians are now in a position to launch a full-scale attack on the town of Kharkov itself. In fact, there have been some mixed bag reports going around on the internet that the Russians have already entered Kharkov from the eastern direction. They've already taken these low-rise residential areas, so single-family homes, along with these suburban blocks here too. And by the way, this is all considered to be part of Kharkov. So yeah, the Russians, I think, as of right now, control just a tiny bit of Kharkov, but they're not going to really go all in yet until they're able to deal with everything north of the Vovcha River here. But the battle for Kharkov, though, is coming, and all things considered, I think the Russians have the edge overall. I just don't see how the Ukrainians will be able to properly defend it without, basically, I don't know, throwing so many manpower in there, just trying to hold on to it. I mean, they might slow down the Russians, but at best, they're not going to really do much. I just can't see it. And also in the Kharkov direction, or the former Donetsk suburbs direction, sort of like Eastern Ghouta in Damascus during 2018, more outskirt settlements are being cleared out. Zoriane, which is this little village here, has been reportedly been taken by the Russians, at least according to Divjin, or Sofa General Staff, but we don't really have a lot of, proof that really is the case yet. And We have also received credible reports too, even I think Deep State themselves have admitted it, that the Russians have successfully broken through in the town of Giernik. And as a result, it appears that the northern part of the town is under Russian control. And as we speak, the Russians are advancing very deep inward into the western part of the town of Giernik. And as far as I can see, I honestly don't know how the Ukrainians, again, just like with Kharkiv, are going to be able to defend this properly. And if anything, I don't even know if the fighting is even going to be that long. I think they're going to likely flee Giernik and Kharkivka, and maybe flee towards either Andriivka here, or maybe towards the soon-to-be contested city of Pokrovsk and Myanograd. But I don't see them going to Selidova. And speaking of which, let's actually talk about that right now. Selidova is mostly encircled. Mostly. That's the key word. Mostly. So the Russians have completed their takeover of Makilivka, I think. I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. Makilivka. And they have also retaken like full control over these like low residential areas too. And they're now fighting for the landfill Tekron junkyard here, which is just north of the commie blocks in Selidova. Now, once this landfill is taken, Selidova is finished. It is absolutely cooked. And the Ukrainians will have no choice but to flee the town and basically to be chased all the way back to Pokrovsk. Now, as I'm making this video right now, the Russians have basically cut most of the roads going into Pokrovsk. They're besieged from the north. They're besieged from the south. They are cut off also from the east and partly towards the west too, because now they have fire control over this road. So there's only like one road left that they can use to get out of Selidova and get like supplies in there. I even heard that the situation is so bad that the Ukrainians, I almost said Russians by the way, so I'm sorry about that they're like airlifting supplies via drones into the areas that the Ukrainians are embedded in within Selidova. But obviously that's not going to really do anything. And if we're to be honest here, I feel like if the Russians were able to encircle the entire city of Selidova, or town of Selidova, the Ukrainians will suffer heavy casualties. And I even heard reports that the Russians have suffered some pretty bad looking casualties too in Selidova. But they're willing to take the losses as far as I can see. Because, I mean, they've already gotten this far. And as soon as they're able to cut off this road here, then the town is basically completely besieged. And there's like no way out. I've heard reports on the street that they are considering of leaving both Selidova and Kharkiv, but none of which have been confirmed. And I honestly don't think that's the case, at least in my opinion. But anyway, let's look at Toretsk. So the Russians have made deeper advances in the city of Toretsk. They have taken now almost complete control over downtown, like the city center, like with all the commie blocks here in the center. With the exception of these. These are not confirmed yet, but as soon as they're able to take those, then Toretsk is pretty much done, like already. I mean, I think the battle for Toretsk started in August, at least within the city limits itself. And I knew that the Russians were probably going to go quite fast in the city, not long after they took these first series of commie blocks here. And once they, like, took all this area here, I'm like, yeah, Ukrainians are done. And, yeah, it appears to be the case, and half of the city is now under Russian control. And it's probably not going to be too long before they end up fleeing Toretsk, which obviously would be better for the Ukraine strategically, but a political embarrassment for President Zelensky, who is begging for long-range missiles and NATO membership to save Ukraine from losing the war to Russia. And going a little bit up north, sorry if I slipped my tongue a bit because I'm talking a little fast. The Russians have advanced once again in the vicinity of Chasiv Yar. They advance a little bit in the north western neighborhoods here. They advanced, like, at least I think up until this point. And they have also started the advance on southern Chazov Yar too. Like, they went down this T0504 road, and now they're, like, entering the southern part of Chazov Yar. So the battle for Chazov Yar is potentially entering its decisive phase, though I honestly don't see the battle ending until, like, maybe late 2024, which is going to be, like, December, or, like, Christmas or so, or maybe, like, the New Year in January 2025. But this is a disaster, and you can obviously see why, because one major road is now being cut to Chazov Yar. And also, don't forget that the Deep State UA has also now confirmed that Russians are advancing from the north, too. So, yeah, Chazov Yar in the long term is not going to be sustainable for the Ukrainians. And, again, just like with maybe Kharkov and Selidova and Ugledar in this case, they're probably going to flee the town and go to, I guess, like, other areas, like Konstantinivka, Slavyansk, and Kramatorsk. You get the big picture. Nothing going on in Sever's direction, despite some crappy, unreliable rumors. There has been a report of fighting in the town of Torsk, which is not far from, or Torske, which is not far from the infamous town of Liman, which is, like, right next door, literally, to Slavyansk. But otherwise, nothing much going on there. Russians have reportedly started the advance towards Terny again, but again, we don't have much going on there. Deep State UA has confirmed that the Russians have advanced in the Kharkov Oblast again. Again, like, they're just basically catching up with other mappers for this village here. Vyshchinivi. I'm sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. And then we got the major news, and it's coming out of the Kupyansk direction, which is the very far eastern section of Kharkiv Oblast. Now, first of all, the Russians have advanced outside of Sinkovka, and they're entering these forested areas here, which will bring them to the Osko River. And they're also contesting with the Ukrainians right now for the suburb of Petropavlivka. And then you got the really, really big news. The Russians have successfully cut the Kupyansk front into two parts, like two halves, north and south, in which the Russians have seized control over half of the village of Kuleivka, or Kulevkivka, right here. They have seized, like, half control of it, and they have also cut off the roads here, too, so the Ukrainians from the south cannot supply their guys to the north, at least in this method anymore, so they're going to have to go around it through Kupyansk itself. And Russians are also reportedly advancing on the village of Kolesnikivka as well. Kolesnikivka. Hopefully I got that one right. And they're also trying to advance on the village of Hlushkivka. But yeah, so things are not going well in the Kharkiv Oblast for the Ukrainians. Now, lastly, before we talk about some interesting rumors, the Russians are advancing really deep into Ukrainian-controlled Kursk Oblast right now. And as far as I can tell, the Ukrainians are on their last leg in the Kursk Oblast. The Russians have re-seized control over these series of villages here, and they're on the brink of reaching the strategic village of Malia Lakhnia. And if they're able to take this village, basically they're going to cut off more guys who were, I don't know, like in the north here. I even heard reports that the Ukrainians have already fled these areas here and towards Sucha, if not back into Sumy Oblast altogether, which is completely controlled by Ukraine. And then to the southern direction, the Russians have reportedly, even though Syriac hasn't confirmed it yet, the Russians have recaptured Plikovo, which is next to Borky, and have also regained control over the village of Cherkassia Konopelska. And I've even started, and I even heard that the Ukrainians, as of late, somehow, someway, have pushed the Russians further back from Martinovka, but I honestly think this is buying time for them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, before I talk about the rumor, I should mention that with the recent advances, The battle for Suja, or perhaps like the final defeat of the Ukrainians in Kursk Oblast, is coming soon. Though I honestly don't think it's going to happen until like next month, if not December at the latest. But yeah, the Kursk adventure in Russia by the AFU is nearing its end, and it was a complete, utter failure. It was a dumb idea from the start. And despite the exciting advances from the Ukrainians in August 2024, they got stalled out, and now the Russians are basically retaking pretty much everything that they lost back in late summer 2024. So it was a complete waste. A lot of Western equipment gone, a lot of Ukrainian soldiers gone, and a lot of guys captured too, that they're going to probably be used in prisoner exchanges. Now, before I go, I heard a rumor that literally, this might be the craziest rumor to ever come out of this war, that troops from North Korea are going to take part in the war in Ukraine, to take part in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And supposedly, they're going to be deployed in the Kursk Oblast to help the Russians recapture Sucha, but there's not enough evidence out there to really prove or give like any validity to these claims. There's just not enough evidence to prove that the North Koreans are really there. Now, even if the rumors were true that they were actually going to go abroad, it's very unlikely they're going to go into Ukraine. It's more likely they're going to go into Kursk, as I just said a moment ago. And yeah, maybe to watch over the border just to make sure Ukrainians don't try another incursion again. And if the rumors also be true, maybe Kim Jong-un wants to put his soldiers within the Korean People's Army to the test, just to see how good and disciplined they are, how skillful they are. I mean, you get the drill. I personally don't believe the rumors. I don't think they have any sort of authenticity to them, at least now. I mean, but if the rumors were to be true, I'll be very honest with you guys, it's going to make for a lot of interesting and very funny memes. You had North Koreans, South Koreans, roof Koreans, and maybe potentially trench Koreans. Now, do I hope these rumors are true? I'm mixed. I do feel like it could escalate things a little bit between the West and Russia, but I wouldn't be too mad because it would make for a lot of memes. But otherwise, though, I don't know. It's very, very shady stuff, if you ask me. And of course, Ukraine fanboys are going to claim that, oh, this means that Russia lost a lot of men. No. If anything, this means that Kim Jong-un either wanted to, I don't know, have bragging rights and actually get his guys involved in a real war, and maybe like stick it to the United States or something. Or perhaps maybe Vladimir Putin needed some backup. Maybe some guys to relieve the Russian border while the main Russian army is like working in Ukraine itself. Because that's literally where everyone is. Literally at the moment. So yeah. Anyway, people, that's going to do it for today's video. So tell me in the comment section below what you think of the news going on in Ukraine. And I will see you all next time. So have a great day or night, afternoon, wherever. And take care. Peace out.